Hi there, it's Robin here from quiltingintheloft.com. I wanted to talk today about a new class I have coming up on my teaching page of my website at quiltingintheloft.com, and that class is called the Crumb Pieced Star. I'm hoping to do some of these classes in the fall with some different guilds and groups. Excellent class for a retreat. If you happen to have a group of people together that are going on a retreat and you need a teacher, this is an excellent class that I could teach. Lots of fun because you get to share fabric and oogle and ogle over all some beautiful fabric. And you need very small pieces up to maybe 2.5 inch strips. Nothing very big. You don't need a lot of fabric. And so I'll show you the project first. You'll see it on the teaching page if you scroll down on my website. And it's called the Crumb Pieced Star. So I'll show you the back first. So here's the back. As you can see, it's heavily quilted. And then here is the front. So this is the actual quilt, and it is finished at 27 by 27 inches. I actually double batted it. So, and then also so that the quilting would show up so nicely. And then I also did some couching because I felt that after it was all done, the gray backing kind of washed out the colors, and that sort of helped to pop it by couching this in the star. And I can show people in the class how to do that as well. Really fun class. It's a one block, it's modern, and it's meant that way so that it's simple, because all of the piecing is the work that you do, and then it's an easy to cut star, and all the math is done for you. Everybody in the class gets the free pattern where all the math is done for you. There's I think it's 26 or 27 inches finished square, and then there's one that you could do that's 55 inches square as well, which is a lot bigger, and it's kind of like a big throw quilt. And I'll show you the colors for that. But first I have a little bit of show and tell and to talk about crumb quilting, and I'll show you some of my crumb quilted blocks, and then we'll get into the method, and we'll do that very shortly. Okay, so why crumb quilting? Well, crumb quilting or crumb piecing is really just a method of using up your really small pieces. It's not crazy piecing, because traditionally crazy piecing has been done on a foundation. It also started with a 5-sided piece in the middle, and there are no rules that apply to this. So you could use pieces as small as 1 inch by 1 inch all the way up to as big as you want to make them. And I'll show you that in my block shortly. But I have my little basket of crumbs here. As you can see, it says crumb pieces, and it is overflowing. So this is a great opportunity to use up some of these little pieces. Oftentimes what will happen is I'm working on a quilt, and I'll have the whole collection, just little bits of it left over. I'll just throw it in here, or I'll have working on an applique and I have some little pieces and I'll throw it in here. I might be making a tote bag or whatever, and I'll just throw the pieces in here. And they're pieces that I know I cannot really use in multiples. Let's say I need 2.5 by 2 inches squares, and I only have a couple left. I just throw it in here. So this is where my valuable but kind of not so usable pieces go to rest until they get used into dynamic crumb quilted projects. So I told you to have some show and tell for you. And so on my instructions for the crumb class, which is on my website, I tell you to have 12 by 12 inch blocks. I'm going to show you some of these. You can see that I've used some strips too, because I didn't have some little pieces and had some strips that weren't going to be used in anything else. And there's some little pieces as well. Also, some little tiny strip pieced units that I already had. So you can use pre-pieced units and just sort of put them together. And you can see there's some tiny, tiny pieces in here. So, you know, very, very, very tiny pieces. Also, a piece of a feature fabric that there's no way I'm going to discard this because it's so pretty with the butterflies. So I thought I would just put it in my crumb piece block bin. Excuse me. And there's some teacup fabric in this one. So you can see they're all different sizes. And some really pretty florals in this one. Some leftover mask fabric from mask making, and some pieced units as well on this side. So all kinds of crumb pieces. These were ones that I used actually in the Crumb Pieced Star. So they're cut down a little bit, but a good variety of colors. As you can see, all kinds of interesting fabrics, and some that have been cut down. So that is what I use. I recommend 12 by 12 inch squares for the 27 by 27 inch Crumb Pieced Star. And then for the 55 by 55 inch, I recommend that you have a 20 by 20 inch piece of fabric. And I'm just getting ready to make my 55 inch piece. And so I have big, huge pieces like this. In some cases, I've used a lot of strips because that's what I had, and that's what I thought I could make the crumb piece thing into. So you're actually making fabric is what you're doing. And there's the fuchsia one. And this star, the 55 by 55 inch, is going to be made, each point of the star is going to be made out of jewel tones. So I'm trying to do it in like turquoise to teal, and then in the fuchsia color, and in the purple, representing jewel tones. I think I'm going to do either a green or a gold or both, and then I have some options to play with when I actually make the 55 by 55 inch star, which I will show on my website once I get that done. And up next, as you can see, I have scrounged around in my little crumb basket for pieces of fabric, and I kind of use this one as my jumping point. You don't have to. You can start with any color in the center, but I think that there's a lot of colors in here, so I've kind of used it as my jumping point, and then added some colors to my grouping like orange and red and teal and gold that I think will help bring it all together. There's also some funky dots. Also got some, I guess you would call it paisley fabric. There is a little bit of batik here. This is the batik. It's important to use cotton, obviously, together. With crazy piecing, traditionally it was done with fancy fabrics and then added lots of embellishments. But with this, we're going to do it with cotton, no foundation. And up next, you'll see me sewing it. It's very rogue, very random, very cave woman style of sewing. And you need to have a little cutting board nearby and a rotary cutter as well. And that will help you so that you can just kind of cut as you go. You also finger press and press the seams flat only when you've done a few, you finished a few. So it's very, very caveman and very lawless and ruleless, I guess you would say. So we're going to get started with that shortly, but I just wanted you to see the selection of fabric, and really it can be any random, your favorite colors from your crumb pieces. Pull them out. Don't even look at them. Sometimes it's fun to just not even look at them and see what happens, and you end up with some really cute blocks, or blocks that you end up being your favorite. Okay, we'll see you shortly. I'm here at my sewing machine now, and I'm going to start with my jumping off block, or the one that I took the color inspiration from. Like I said earlier, you don't even have to do it this way. And obviously we're going to put pieces right sides together. And I have an orange piece here, which I know is long enough. And that's all you're going to do is just make sure that it's long enough. And sew it right sides together. And then remove it from your sewing machine. I usually try to cut away the threads as I go, just so I end up with not so much housekeeping to do at the end. And I'm going to cut this strip away with scissors. Woo! Even with my block. And I'll save that piece for another little bit. There I have it. And I'm going to finger press this. I'm not really going to press until I have a bigger piece. Okay, so now I'm going to go rogue on you, and I'm going to add a triangle. Oh, scary, but not so scary. It's just kind of funky piecing, rogue piecing, or cave woman piecing. I know Ricky Timms uses the terminology caveman. We're women, so, or for the most part, or for men that are out there quilting, you're cavemen as well. And I'm going to go ahead and put this triangle on there, and I'm not going to worry about it too much. Cut away my threads, finger press it, and then this is going to give me a nice angle to put some other piecing on. And I'm going to find a nice long strip, and maybe I'll go across here first. long as I know it'll meet right sides together, and I'm going to go ahead and sew again. When you have a little tail like this, you just cut it away because you don't want that excess bulk. So that's not a problem either. And then you're just going to finger press it like that. And I would cut off this longer end. Obviously, we're not using rotary cutters. Now, when I get to the point that I want to, I do have a rotary cutter and a little mat here. See over here that I can work with. But right now, I don't think I need it. Wow, it looks like a house with a chimney. I realize I'm going to cut this off at an angle because it goes in line with the angle that I have there. And I'm just going to keep building on this block. And you got these little pieces, and if they're too small, they're like this size. You don't want to keep those. Those are too small. It's almost zero waste, but not quite. But a piece like that, you might want to keep. So as long as you've got about 1 inch in diameter, you're good to go. And as you can see, I have some strip pieced fabric as well that's already pre-strip pieced. I may have used it on another crumb block, and I'm going to just sew that one in now as well. I'm not even holding my threads. I'm just going totally rogue on this and having fun and seeing what's going to happen. And not really planning it either. The only planning I did was I started with a jump off block or the bright colored block, and that's the only planning. And then I'm going to fold this one. And I'm just going to keep working, cutting away, and it's about time for a press. So I would say probably every 5th or 6th piece you might want to press your blocks because they do need to end up being flat in the end. And obviously this little piece that I've cut off is too small, so I'm just going to put that down below because I'm not going to be using that again. But this piece that I have cut off is big enough that I can use again. So I'll set that in my usable pile, and I'm going to press this and get back, and I'll show you what I'm doing next. My block is now pressed, and I'm going to add some more fabric to it. I've got a bigger piece that maybe I could have used on another project, but it's the last remaining piece of this type of fabric. So I'm just going to line this up on the side as well. And I'm just going to keep building on this block. As I said earlier, what you're making is fabric sheets, basically, so that you're ready to make it into some kind of block. And so with this one, I'm not even going to cut. I'm just going to add a strip. Let's see if that fits. That one doesn't fit. We'll see if you have a longer one. And maybe this polka dot one will fit. So we'll make that fit. And as you can see, I know it's not even up here, but I'm just going to go so that this strip will end up being even. So don't worry about little overlapping pieces like this. You can cut them away before you iron them so that you don't have the bulk. Caught the thread a little bit there. As you can see, I have lots of excess fabric here and here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut those away. I'm cutting it even with the seam allowance. I am using 1/4 inch seam allowance only because I want to avoid the actual whole fabric piece being weak. So 1/4 inch seam allowance is just something that I just do almost automatically. And I'm ready to add some other pieces, and I think I'm going to work on the other side. I'm going to try and find something longer to fit on the other side, and this just about works, so that's perfect. So the moral of this story is don't be afraid of triangular pieces or odd-shaped pieces. They'll work too. You're just crazy piecing it. Well, you're crumb piecing it together. And I'm going to press it and get back to you. And if you don't have pieces that are long enough, for instance, I want to make sure something's long enough to fit on this side, right here, on that side of my quilt. So what I want to do is I'm going to piece a couple of pieces together. So don't just think, okay, I don't have a piece long enough. Add some pieces together. Chain piecing too helps to save on threads. You're not using up so much thread. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to piece these two together. And I know that on the other side, I need two pieces that are a little bit longer, and I'm going to piece these two guys together. If you know that your block is getting to be quite big, then piece some strips together or blocks to squares together or whatever pre-pieced units you have, whatever you want to, just to make it long enough. So now I know that this piece here is long enough to go on the side of what looks like a house block now, but it's going to be long enough to go here. And I'm starting to make it look a little bit more uniform. I mean uniform in terms of I'll be able to square it up into a square shortly. So I'm going to keep going, and I'll go ahead and sew, and I'll speed up the video so I won't be talking for a minute, and then you'll see the finished product at the end. I have finished my block now, and it looks like this. And so it's kind of different looking than when we started, because I have now squared it to 12 inches. And that's what you need. You need, I believe, 5 or 6 of these blocks to do the 27 by 27 inch. You'll have lots of fabric with that. You've made your fabric if you've made all the blocks. And that's to make the star, the Crumb Pieced Star, which I'm going to show you again. Looks like this. And then there's a bigger one as well. It's 55 by 55 inches, which I'll post on my website shortly. As well, I wanted to show you just a little bit of mess that you end up with. Very, very little fabric. You literally have schnibbles left over. Some of your pieces might be big. They might be more like, instead of crumbs, they might be more like cookies or meatloaf, because they're actually bigger like this one. But don't worry, just piece it all in. It's all your random leftover crumbs that are left over from different quilt projects, and don't be afraid to use lots of color. If you want to make it monochromatic, like my bigger star that I'm going to be showing on my website shortly, probably within the next couple of months, it will be up there. Then refer back to my website at quiltingintheloft.com. Thanks for joining me today for the crumb piecing demonstration, and I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you give it a try and make some things out of it. It's a great way to have some nostalgic look at your old fabric, and have some fun, and you know, just play with your fabric. Have a great day.